All right. We're back with another episode of Hitting Hands podcast. A friend of mine, he can teach you guys a lot about marketing in this music game and the things that you don't see that happens that helps your biggest artists get to where they got to go. We're just going to jump right into it, man. We're here with Dharmic Jain.
What's good, man? Thanks for having me.
Man?
Both you guys. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Nice meeting you.
Yeah,
too,
nice
bro.
to meet you today,
Definitely.
man.
Yeah,
for sure. Heard a lot about you, man. It's a crazy time right now as we're filming this.
Yeah. I was about to say, we're excited to have you, man.
Listen, man. Congrats
We
to the
talked
gang.
to a lot of producers. We talked to some producers. We talked to engineers.
Yeah.
But we've never had somebody that's on the marketing side of the music industry.
Yeah.
Right.
So this should be a good combo because I can't think of a conversation I've seen online with the marketing guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we tend to be under the radar. You know, I think in the business, the A&Rs tend to get all the limelight. And I mean, truthfully, they're the ones who are like in the studio usually, like out and about. You know, getting like. Ultimately, they have the relationship with the artist, right? In most cases.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a rare exception where like I'm kind of the one at the label with the relationship outside of Todd, of course. And so, but like mostly it's the A&R who has the relationship. It's the A&R who's outside with them. But you know, the marketing staff of any label is kind of the backbone, if you will, right? Making sure that everything is staying on the line and getting out the door. You know.
Yeah.
no,
And you actually get out the office and I see you at video shoots and you know what I mean, and press runs. I see you around, man. You actually get out the office and get down there and move around. So before we get into that, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into the music industry?
Yeah.
I moved to New York and was in college, and NYU have a big college radio station. You know, pretty big part of like the hip hop scene from the beginning, and you know, because it's New York. And so I found it and joined the station and started doing interviews and started going to shows because, you know, you could get free tickets to all the big venues. We're all right there, like 5 minutes away. So like SOBs and Webster Hall and Irving Plaza and everything was like a walking distance. So started to, you know, do the show, hit up artists that were opening, coming into town, going to the shows, linking with people at the shows, and reaching back out to them the next day. Like after I meet up with somebody, I'd hit them and be like, yo, it was good meeting you, and sort of building my network that way. And, you know, eventually from the radio show, started writing. I started to be a journalist for like Complex and shit like that. And then, you know, flip sides, became a publicist. And then, as the business really started to take off, like 2018, when rap became like big in the streaming world, you know, the label started reaching out and, you know, ended up at Alamo, and I've been there ever since.
You know, a lot of the people that we interview, their stories, it's similar, right? Like where they kind of evolve into their role.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hear you talk about you working for a publication, then being PR, then so you're getting all these different, you know what I mean, like qualifications to then lead into your marketing role. You know what I mean?
Because like for me, coming into this, I knew I was just a fan, right?
Yeah.
Like when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, I was just a fan of music and just a fan of hip hop. And so, you know, I didn't know that there was jobs for people in the music business for people who didn't make music in any way, shape, or form. So when I started doing radio, I didn't think of it as a job or as a career or anything. I was just like, oh, this could be some fun shit to do. Just sort of play music of artists I fuck with.
Yeah.
And you know, because we were in New York, it just so happened that we were in New York, I was able to get a hold of people. And I did like Joey Badass's first ever interview.
Okay.
And you know, I interviewed Rhapsody in like 2012, and you know, so I was just like was kind of getting into the scene, and everything that I saw online or was listening to, I was able to access. It was right there. And so then that made me go, oh, what else can I do? And so, you know, I didn't get into it with like a goal of what I wanted to do because I didn't know it was possible, any of it. But through it all, I think the key thing for me the whole way through was just like, I'm just a big fan of the underdog. I think that's a really big part of why I resonate with the artists that I work with now. Like I'm a big fan of the underdog, and for me, it's always about storytelling. Because I used to love to read as a kid, and so telling the underdog story is That's why you want to, it's why I wanted to do radio and play the music of the artists that I fucked with that people may not have known about. And then as a writer, write about, artists that I was a fan of that people didn't know about. And, just translating that through each step of the journey, where now on the marketing side of things, I'm still doing that same thing. I'm telling the story, of an artist who people hadn't heard of, and that story evolves, and now we're kind of in a different place. But I love that part of it. Just breaking an artist and telling their story from the ground up. Like that's always the pure joy of it.
First of all, you don't have a musical background.
Not like play an instrument or anything.
Yeah,
I learned piano for a couple years, but like nothing too serious.
but you grew up loving music.
Yeah. Like, and growing up as a kid, it was, I'm an immigrant. My parents are from India. And so, it was Bollywood music. Like, we'd be in the car driving, like my dad would pick up my mom from work or whatever. And like, it'd be like cassettes, right? And like, of like different Bollywood soundtracks, like movie soundtracks, which is the main form of music in India, especially then. And I'd like memorize the track titles on the back of the cassette player, and like who the singers were for each of the tracks. So, now looking back, I'm able to realize like, oh, music was just such a big part of my life as a kid. Like, even as even like a few years ago, I don't think I made that connection. You know what I mean? But like that was such a big part, like of just growing up. Like that was a fond memory for me, like listening to my favorite songs and artists and whatever. And so music's always been a big part of just growing up, and it just translated as I got more.
So how was it coming here, and then hip hop, rap, coming from the Bollywood music you were liking? How was that? How was the change?
I mean, that's just growing up, like in this country. Like, I was obviously born and raised here, so I went to school here. And so, eventually when you get to a certain age, it's not, there's always two parts.
Okay. I thought when you said you were an immigrant, I thought
no, my
went
bad.
to school for a little while and then came here like very small.
I was born, my parents moved after they got married, then I was born like a few years later. Okay. So here I was born in New York actually, and then I grew up in Boston.
Okay.
And so yeah. And so like, the two most important parts, like the music that shapes your life is like the music you grew up with that your parents put you onto. It's always a fond memory for you. And then the music your friends put you onto as you get older, right? Those are kind of the two stages. And so for me in middle school and entering high school, that's like, mixtape Wheezy. Okay. Like the feature run that he went on, like I was like 9th, 10th grade.
Locked in.
Yeah, like Canon Remix or like We Taking Over verse and all of that. So those are kind of those two memories for me.
Like you said, it plays the music you like growing up. It's funny you said that, because when I got to Red Zone with Tricky and them, it was almost like a layup as far as the taste, as far as my musical taste, because my dad had been listening to Aaron Hall and R&B my whole life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh, these are records you guys are making. I know R&B records. You know what I mean? I could figure this out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it triggers something in you, even if you've forgotten about it a little bit. Like there'll be records nowadays where I'll just suddenly it'll come in my head randomly, and I haven't heard it in like 15 years, but it's because it's so pivotal to like growing up. It's just you remember it.
The marketing of artists has changed since you've got in like since you've been around.
Man, I mean, it was already starting when I got into it, but like the internet is more and more. It is the game, right? And the tools on the internet have changed so much since I started. Like TikTok didn't exist when I started working at Alamo. It was Musical.ly. Gotcha. Like they changed the name right before the pandemic.
That's what TikTok was, Musical.ly?
Musical.ly, yeah.
How did I never knew that? I'm slow.
You be in the studio, man.
Yeah, I was like, you're right. Those Musical.ly damn videos they used to keep dropping.
Those little weird cringe videos. Yeah. Once they rebranded, it went crazy. Yeah. So it wasn't a thing when we started, and so then in the pandemic, it became the biggest thing. And it's still a huge thing. TikTok is still a massive platform, but how the platform works has changed so much. And what works well there has changed so much. Like, when you thought of TikTok, and maybe still, if you think of TikTok, you think of dancing. These days, it's not about dancing. Like nobody's really dancing on the app. The biggest creators who are known for dancing, like the Renegade and all that shit, they don't be dancing on that app no more. And so, you know, the landscape on each platform has kind of changed. Twitter's not Twitter anymore. It's X now. Like, what does that mean? Like, YouTube has shorts now. Like, TikTok changed the game, basically, right? So now everybody's trying to compete with it in terms of like
and the shorts.
Exactly. And so, you know, the landscape has changed from that standpoint. And so understanding the landscape is so important, and also understanding that it's going to change and how it's changing and trying to get ahead of that, you know? So, but at the end of the day, what's kind of stayed the same is the content matters, you know, like the music itself matters, and how you present that music to the world matters, you know?
Right.
And so I think that's something. You and I know each other from the Rod Wave world, right? And that's something that I feel like Rod's always gotten right, and we've always gotten right with him in terms of how we get his music out there and his musicality out there. Yeah, because that's really what makes him special. And I think that, you know, from the beginning, getting that out there has always been what's driven the narrative for him. So
it's the music first.
Yeah, it's the music first.
But he's a music first kind of artist. Every artist isn't a music first artist.
Right.
No,
are they?
No, they're not. They're not, and it doesn't work like that for everybody. Yeah. I mean, there's some people who, like, you know, TikTok is everything, or like, but not just TikTok, like, you know, the way Choppa works, right? Yeah. Where it's definitely about the record. The guy makes big records, and even this new song that he just put out with the Nelly flip is a big record. Yeah. But it's, you know, how he puts that out there in the world isn't necessarily, you know, him singing the song or him rapping the song. It's, you know, the way the artwork looks and the whole recreation and creating that whole narrative around it,
and back into the old school, and the nostalgia, getting us to remember, oh, we used to like this Nelly song.
Yeah, and then when there's the backlash to that, and like, oh, like, I don't think he did it right or whatever, then he flips it on his head, and he's starting to get into the TikTok shit, and he's like, you know, he doesn't even run an Instagram page. Oh, like the label runs his Instagram page. It says that on the bio. He runs his TikTok. Yeah. And he got super active on that in terms of like people making like reaction videos to the song or whatever, and he just duetted them, and those took off, and that became a trend, and now everybody's doing that, and the streams went all the way up. So you know, there's different artists have different ways of sort of getting a record out there, right? And not everything works for everybody. Like Rod's not going to be the guy who's like getting on TikTok. I mean, he has a TikTok now, I guess, right? But you know, he's not gonna be the guy who, you know,
gets on TikTok. And was it true that that the labels or that people were saying, "Hey, you need a TikTok record. You need to go in the studio and focus on something that works for TikTok," because that's a big rumor.
I think some labels probably were doing that. I know that was never our approach to it, because that's just not who our artists are. That's not who we sign. And there was a lot of labels at the time that were, you know, as a record would take off and start moving on an unsigned artist, snatch them up, you know, and spend a bunch of money, sign the artist, work the record, spend a bunch of money at TikTok. By the way, TikTok's not a cheap platform to promote on, right? Like sometimes these days, you know, if an artist is getting on it, and they're posting on it, and they're getting other people to post on it, that can be a little bit less expensive. But influencers worked up a monopoly as those records started to explode, and they were making so much money that it would start to cost like $20,000 for a post. You know what I mean? Oh, wow. And so, you know, you're spending a bunch of money to break a record, but the records were moving. There was huge songs. Like, you remember Party Girl, Stay Solid Rocky? Like, that was a huge record. Or, you know, obviously Savage, we all know. But we didn't really sign a lot of artists like that. We didn't really sign a lot of artists off of like a TikTok record, because the question then becomes, what do you do after that song has kind of run its course? Exactly. And some labels were prepared for like, okay, let's take a record, let's work a record. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And it happened to a lot of artists. There are a lot of artists that are kind of gone, and it's changed the landscape of music. I was having this conversation. With a friend of mine, and I want to get your guys' take on it. Like, it's almost like with TikTok and the TikTok record, we're now back into a space similar to like the ringtone rap era.
I was just about to say ringtone era.
Ringtone era.
It reminds me of the ringtones. Like when it came and everybody jumped on it, and it was an avenue to get your stuff out there. And then, but now it might actually hurt you now you know what I mean? In the long run, to have just a quick flash in the pan TikTok record.
One hit wonder.
You know what I mean? Depending on who you are. If your ability is a one hit wonder ability, then that's good. Then it could probably be good for you. But if you're a long term artist, then it's like you might not want to box yourself in. There's no guarantee with any of this. Yeah. But you might not want to box yourself in to look like the cheesy.
I mean, it's hard to be an artist now. It's hard to really be an actual artist, and you have all these big songs, and the artists don't necessarily. Who knows if we're gonna hear about them 5 years from now? And it's very similar to that era. And I was saying, I'm fond of that era. Like, I was in high school during that era, so I love those records. Like, you know, I love, you know, It's Going Down by Young Jock, or, you know, I was just talking about Lil Scrappy had records. But
Kiss Me Through the Phone. If you want Kiss Me Through the Phone to be your ringtone, dial star 7888. Text stop now.
I will say he was a phenomenon in that era. Like the first album and second album, like, yes, I know that it was really driven by ringtones, but there was like 3 songs on that first album. On the Soulja Boy first album, there was 3 songs on that for sure. Yeah. And then the second album had like it had Kiss Me Through the Phone, but it had Turn My Swag On. Yeah. Yeah. Big records.
Do you get another Soulja Boy in this climate?
Definitely. I think
there's a couple.
Yeah. I definitely think there's a couple of people. Like, there's people who know how to use the app to keep popping off records. Right. And that's ultimately what made Soulja Boy what he was. He was savvy. He knew how to make the app work to his advantage, YouTube or ringtones or whatever. Yeah. And so there's a few artists who are incredibly smart, incredibly savvy, make good music, like make good records for that standpoint, and work their ass off.
Good records are good enough.
I'd say the records are good. Okay. I think they're obviously utilizing certain cheat codes, if you will, but like they're good records. Like, and not only are they good records, they're really smart and they know how to work those records, right? Right. You know, I think the best example of that is Coi Leray, right? Like she really knows how to work her records and has been doing that since No More Parties, right? Yeah. And the proof is in the pudding. Like, she, you know, people have written her off after the first album didn't perform, and you know, she came back around with another couple of hits under her belt, and you know, I mean, I think she's got a few more in her.
I think that's a good formula, though. Like, if that's kind of your vibe, is you can keep coming with those type of singles. Like the same thing with Ice Spice. I don't think people check for these artists' body of work. They look for those moments, right? Like those. You know,
it's kind of like a progression.
And it kind of works.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
saying? It's almost like the album.
Yeah.
Today, nowadays, almost like the album kind of feels like the end of some people's run. Like, it's almost like the album comes and then it's almost like it's marketed to kill them. Like, it's over with. It's like, oh, Lil Nuke just sold 3,000 records.
Yeah,
exactly. And then like
that's what it felt like.
And then it's like they're marketing against it. Do you suggest dropping albums in this time period, or how would you approach dropping albums? Like, if you're a new artist,
I think it depends on the artist, right? Like, you know, I think what Cardi's done so far is just letting singles come out and making big moments around them. Works for, you know, certain artists who are hit-driven artists.
Yeah, see, if I was Cardi, I would never drop another album.
I mean,
because my first album, you won Grammy. You won a Grammy for Best Rap Album.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
So you're already up here.
It's a lot of pressure.
The only way I'm dropping another album is if I giving you a single and it was out of the park. Then the next single, out of the park. The next single. Then I got about 4 singles that knocked out the park. Now I could put these 4 singles on there, and I know I can get y'all anticipate more music. And I'm rolling hot then if I'm putting out singles like that. Yeah. You know?
So it's not for everybody, I think. The album format's not for everybody. Also, the way people look at numbers is like, you know, they don't get the nuance of it, right? Like, an album these days may not do as well as an album was doing, you know, 2-3 years ago when all the bundles were in effect, or you know,
what counts
streaming
as a good album sales? Like, what would you say is like, oh, that's good or that's bad, or is it just depend on the artist?
It definitely depends on the artist, right? Like, you know, not 50,000 units for a certain artist who's maybe early on in the game is different than, you know, an established veteran artist doing 50,000 units. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's totally artist dependent. That's the thing that people, I think, sometimes miss. It's like, what did the artist do the last go around? What has their trajectory been the last time? You know, like, if you look at Travis's number, like, considering he hadn't dropped anything in 5 years, to do the same streaming numbers that he did, I think is pretty impressive, you know?
Yeah,
and
everything that he went through in between too.
Exactly.
But
So
that had to play in part with the bundles, right?
I'm saying the streaming numbers. I'm not even talking about the bundles.
Yeah,
What was the streaming numbers like?
Streams were up.
With the, it was slightly more than the last album.
180 or something.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember the exact number, but I know compared to Astroworld, it was more.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean the you know
I think
the,
it's temperature too in music. Like one thing I wanted to touch on was I wanted your take on this because what I've been doing in terms of just studying like certain moments. Like, you know, we just talked to Ben Thomas, and he was a big part of Pink Tape with Uzi. You know, all the controversy around Gunna, you know, Thug situation.
Yeah,
I think that, and this is, I mean, it's always been like this, but these nowadays, with everything being the way that it is in music and everything kind of blending in and sounding a lot of, you know, being the same, you have to create these moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You gotta bring people into an experience. Like what Travis does really, really well is the marketing side. Like, and not him, but I'm saying I know it comes with his team and everything, but he's definitely a visionary. And I just kind of wanted your take on where we're at in terms of the temperature of music and how much more important your role is in the marketing side of, you know, helping people to push their music and in the climate where we're at with sales and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more important and in some ways, and then it's less important in other ways, right? Like, you know, obviously, it's really important to build a world, and the greats are able to do that, and marketing is a big part of that. The smoke and mirrors of it, so to speak. You know, the other aspects of it beyond the music to like get their story out there.
Yeah,
super important. And then in some instances, like, you know, it's not, and because the music, the song just stands out, and it carries it, or the music just stands out and the word of mouth stands out and it carries it. But like, it's really the balance of the two, because, you know, you can't go too overboard sometimes. Like, you know, with Rod, we're never gonna force it, because that's just not who he is. That's not how he communicates to his fans. And so if you ever got to a place where we were overdoing it, it just wouldn't connect. The audience would know that something was wrong, and it wouldn't land. And so, you know, you have to be very specific to who it is, because the world is individual, right? And so, you know, I mean, our role is just just more challenging now in this landscape than ever before. Yeah, to be honest.
Right.
So, because he, you know,
touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean by more challenging? Like, then you talking about like throughout the musical history, throughout the history of music.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Over
I mean,
the past 30,
not that
for 50. I mean, but let's say 30 years. You're saying now is what you would say is the more difficult time.
Yeah.
To market an artist.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, there's no formula to this. There's no like, oh, if a song is researching or reacting well, just dump $500,000 into it and make it a massive song.
Right.
Like that's not really a thing. The gatekeepers in some ways matter less than ever before, because the power is right there in the hands of the people and what they react to.
That's where you get phrases like industry plant and stuff like that.
I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm not a believer in the industry plant phrase, or
they eat it up still when it's a plant or not. They can't tell.
I think industry plant is sometimes a word for artist development. You know what I mean? Like, but at the end of the day, like, it's harder to have industry plants or artist development because the fans are like you're going direct to them. To get everything. So
the term industry plant, I would think that would make it difficult now, because it's almost like to me, I don't believe that there is an industry plan. I think everything's an industry plan, right? This is not like, even though it might have been organic up until this point, it got picked up and put in front of the world. But now it's like the fans believe that shit. Like, like the word organic is so ran into the
Yeah.
ground because like it has to be organic or this has to be organic or we want to get it organic. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let's keep it organic. And it's like, but when do you add marketing?
I mean, at the end of the day, though, like it's very see-through when somebody is trying to shove something down everybody's throats, and it doesn't connect very often. There's a couple examples, you know, that I've seen recently where it's like this artist is like done all the big interviews and gotten all the big features, and you know they're over here and they're in this thing, and the numbers don't match up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, that's the issue. It's like you can get the biggest cosigns and the biggest looks and everything, and that doesn't guarantee success. And maybe it was always like that, but it feels like it's like that more and more.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it feels like I think at some point they would get like 3 out of 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like they took 5 people and said, "Hey, we're gonna put some money behind this person and push them." I would think it'd be like 3 out of 5. It seemed like we bought into it younger or back in the day. You know what I mean? People bought more into it. It seemed like it was more like, hey, we can sign this artist and we could break this artist. Now it seems like it's like, okay, are you already moving and how far are you? Because we can't guarantee you that they're gonna like you. So we need you to prove that part to us.
Yeah.
And then we can make you bigger.
Well, it's also there's so many places people can consume an artist's music. Like back then, you're listening to a radio, watching it on TV, or you're getting a CD.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And then these days, it's like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, AudioMac, SoundCloud, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. Like there's so many ways you can listen to music, and everybody's different in how they listen to music. Like I bet you in this room, like how do you like to listen to your music?
I go Tidal first.
Yeah.
Just for quality.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'll see what's popping on, like what sounds are popping up and, you know, different reels and Instagram just to kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changes, you know, but something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's a million ways.
I would say mine is YouTube is the quickest way I find new artists now. And that's just because the YouTube algorithm, because that's kind of my thing. It's like, if you act like you don't know me, or like I've never clicked a song in this shit before, like that's one reason why I couldn't get down with Tidal, because Titles create like how they would take me to other music. I would have to know the music, and it's like, dog, this is a phone that's just full of music. You know what I mean? So how do I know where to go? So Spotify does a good job for me, but I've had Spotify since the beginning. So they know my playlist. It's been analyzing me for so long that they'll suggest songs and I'll be like, damn, I actually like this new artist. I like them. YouTube does the same thing. But other than that, like when I get into Apple Music, like I'm rarely on Apple Music. You know what I mean? That's just because I was already on Spotify first. With long playlists and stuff. And if they would have made, I guess that would be counterintuitive to them, but if they would have made the playlist transferable or something, like, hey, I could take my playlist here and just dump it right onto Apple Music or something, then I would be good. But I'm stuck where my playlists are at, kind of. You know what I mean?
Makes
and where
sense.
the most data about my music listening is at. You know what I mean?
For me, it's Apple actually, because it takes a lot for me to want to go check out a new artist. Like, you know, I want to hear about them a little bit from a bunch of different people. I want to like check a song out, dip my toe in, and then go all the way. But when I go all the way, I go all the way. But so Apple for me is kind of, because I don't want to be surprised as I'm like going about my day listening to something. I want to listen to what I want to listen to. So Apple's kind of good for that. And, you know, obviously how they built up their radio system was good. It was cool to support, you know, as you get artists on the platform or whatever. So Apple's always kind of been it for me. But obviously, you know, YouTube is a big part of it. It's great. It's the best platform for artist discovery. I think
so, because it just shows you, like, it just keep rolling. You might walk out the room and then you come back, you're like, Lil Tyler. That's how I found out about Lil Tyler. I was just chilling. And I was like, what the fuck? This song kind of ride. Who is this kid? And like, oh, shit. Lil Tyler, okay. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Further. That was from YouTube.
Exactly.
But it's so many ways to figure out, to find music nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, because you were naming them and I was like, yeah, you ain't in Google Play, Amazon
Right,
Music, like
right.
everybody, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shazam has something now where you can listen to it on there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just
Pandora's still a thing.
Pandora. For the
I used
like
to
my
love
dad still
Pandora
listens to Pandora.
as a high school kid. Like I think it came out right as I was like my senior year of high school. That was the shit because like streaming wasn't really a thing, but this thing that'll just this app that'll let you listen to like a random song. Like you just type in like a station, like an artist or a song,
and it keeps you in that same vein.
Yeah, it was cool. I still have probably a couple of stations that I fuck with on that, but I don't listen to it very often. But
a lot of the older people I know, they still love Pandora.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm doing that Pandora station, man. I heard that song y'all did the other day, man. That was kind of nice, man. They play that on their Pandora. I'm telling you, old folks like them.
Because you talk about some of the hurdles and the difficulties, and all the different ways that people consume music compared to just buying a CD or hearing the radio.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is kind of the future of what you do?
AI is gonna get more and more sophisticated, and I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even know what that's gonna mean. You know, like to the point that we just said, like AI now can like do our drops for us.
Yeah,
they can. If you wanna, let's say you have a record that you're about to put out, like a collab that you're about to put out, but you don't have the verse back yet, or you don't want to reveal the verse, you can like create a mashup using AI and not have to pay somebody to do that, and save cost and get that out there in the world. And you want to hear these two, this is what it would sound like if these two got on a song. That starts to build out more scenarios, and then you start teasing it. But at the end of the day, like the online world, I don't know if it ever fully replaces real life. Yeah. Like you still almost need to create real life touch points for the digital footprint. Billboards still matter because of the online conversation. And the best example of that happened recently, and I don't know, I had some involvement in it, but not exactly. But the Dirk Better billboards that happened, they traveled. Yeah. And nobody really even like spread them. Literally somebody saw it I think it was in Baton Rouge or whatever. Somebody saw it, took a photo, tweeted it out, local news picked it up, and it became a story. And then there were, I think, the opposite ones in Chicago somewhere or whatever. But like, you still need real life moments for people to talk about. Like, yes, the Riverboat Brawl was all over the internet. We all saw it. But if there are not people fighting at the riverboat, there is no Riverboat Brawl. There are no memes. There is no content. So, I mean, Rod is the greatest example of this with the concerts. Like, Rod Wave having a diehard fan base is like, it's just numbers on a screen if you're just talking about streams. But when you see footage of those, fans in the arena singing word for word, like screaming at the top of their lungs, that's a fan base. That's a diehard fan base that really translates, that gets people talking about it. And so I think you can never, I don't know if you can replace those moments with AI or anything online. So
I agree.
I think that's always, because at the end of the day, we're human. Yeah. And until we stop being human experiences still matter.
That's absolutely true. And I think, so to your point, I feel like it's going to be this hybrid thing because AI is not going anywhere. It's just going to get, like you said, more sophisticated. Yeah. And a lot of this stuff is going to kind of get weeded out, and we're going to continually have to face it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And figure out how to incorporate it and keep that balance. Yeah. So, yeah,
It's like they have this phrase that they say, is it pioneers get slaughtered, settlers prosper? I think AI is going to kind of be in that scenario to where it's like the first set, like they're going to get slaughtered. The guy who tried to come up with the artist, the AI artist that one time.
The fake Drake guy?
No, remember they had that one AI artist?
Oh,
he was like a complete AI
artist.
Yeah,
that guy, that was nuts.
But see, you know what I mean? But you're going to get slaughtered in the beginning. But eventually as it goes on, we figured out how to integrate it.
People learn from the mistakes of what the first person does, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's real.
Who comes up with these? I just gotta ask you, man. Who comes up with these like you see these playlists online. Like I saw a playlist the other day said Barack Obama's playlist for like the summer or some shit.
Yeah.
They had like Babyface Ray on there.
Yep.
You can't convince me that Barack Obama picked Babyface Ray. You know what I'm saying? Y'all taking it too far. Not you, because I know you didn't have
I don't know Barack
list.
Obama.
But yeah, I'm just saying, but like just the marketing behind that, because that would be marketing, right? The guys who like coming up with that idea. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
There are some variations. I feel like last year somebody photoshopped a name into the playlist because Barack Obama's playlist is like a thing now, right? For the last like 5 years, I think he posts it twice a year. It's like one in the summer, one at the end of the year.
But
his playlist and Jay's playlist.
Is he listening to these songs like, what's going on?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I just can't believe Barack would say, "Hey, that new Babyface Ray, man, killing it." You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know.
Babyface Ray fine. I like Babyface Ray, but
here's the thing though. He's got 2 daughters.
Michelle.
Right.
He's got 2 daughters that are in their 20s. They might be bumping Babyface Ray
in the house, man.
Yeah, they might be bumping Babyface Ray.
You think Barack is
you think
entertaining his daughters bumping Babyface Ray?
And they got the sample.
It's definitely possible that his daughters
are
are
sample. You know what I'm saying?
It's definitely possible.
I think a dad.
You don't think it's wait? You don't think
his
it's
listening to Babyface Ray?
You don't think his daughters are listening to rap music?
No, I wholeheartedly think they're listening to rap.
You don't think they're listening to Babyface Ray?
I don't think they're jumping in the car with Barack doing that shit.
Nah, he's cool, bro. He's cool.
He's presidential
like,
cool.
Because he heard
he's
like
presidential cool. That's like
he got swag, bro.
Oh shit. That's like when the teacher wears like Jordans on like the Friday and everybody's like, damn, that's the cool teacher. Yeah. All he had to do was wear his fucking Jordans because every other day they look like squares.
I mean, that's like
I don't really see Obama being that actual cool.
I mean, that'd be like
still gotta be how old is he? 70, 60? Gotta be 60 years, 60
probably.
Something.
Yeah, in his 60s probably.
Yeah.
But like that'd be like if Santa Claus wasn't real. You know what I mean? Like if his playlist,
that, the Santa Claus playlist. They gonna come with that next.
But listen, like, you know, sometimes we have opportunities where our artists need to make playlists and it'll give them extra looks.
But some playlists look kind of crazy. Rosie O'Donnell playlist.
Well, no, what I was gonna say is like, I don't have the ability. I have a lot of things I have to ask my artists on a day to day. I may not ask. I may need to get 20 songs from them. I may not ask them for their 20 songs, but I'll know like the type of. I'll get a baseline read for like what they're into, what they're not into, and I'll throw some things in to where if they saw it, like they would, you know, it's shit they fuck with, but you know, they may not hand pick records. I don't think that's the case for somebody whose playlist is as sought after as like Obama's or Hove's, but like it's possible. It's possible that it's somebody who kind of gets what they fuck with. They're just like putting some things in that feel right, but it's so specific. It's so like such a tradition that I doubt it. I bet it's more so the kids with somebody like him.
You listen to that
sounds
shit,
like
man.
AI to me.
You listen to that Babyface Ray.
All right, Obama playlist.
Listen,
somebody Nana in the car listening to. Yeah, man, this is the Obama playlist. I like this Babyface Ray. There's no disrespect to Babyface Ray. I'm just saying.
No, it's not. I mean, I think it's fire. I think it's fire that he gets that inclusion.
Yeah.
right.
I've always, scanned those lists to see if Rod would ever get there. I remember when Hove had Hard on Ice.
I bet Hard on Ice was on one of them.
Yeah.
Hove's playlist.
Hove's
playlist. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Did y'all
so y'all didn't have nothing to do with that?
No, definitely not.
See, because you never know. See, this is why the industry plant thing becomes such a real conversation. I'm gonna break it down right now because there's back in the day when we heard about payola.
Yeah.
As a fan, we heard, hey, they pay the radio to play these songs, right? But now it's like you don't know. You know what I mean? Because it could be like this over here is getting shoved down our throat. This person over here is getting part of it. So we kind of jump, and I'm speaking we as the fans.
Yeah.
We kind of jump to they must be industry plants. So like Coy LeRae, she dealt with a lot of industry plant shit.
Of course.
Me knowing the music industry, she's probably the least of being an industry plant. Your dad's in the situation. You know what I mean? You have so many things going against you that you have to work your own way into it. But then you get the industry plant label because, hey, your dad's Benzino. He had to get you this. You know what I mean? This person. So it's like when you see these playlists that are like, this is Barack's playlist, this is Jay-Z's playlist, you kind of feel like there's no way that Hov is doing this on this weekend.
I mean,
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you haven't seen Rod and Hov together, have you?
no.
I think it was people were putting him on, and you know, it's possible. Like, so for example, like me and Todd have a great relationship, right? Todd's the founder of Alamo. I'm not putting him onto music on the regular. Him and I are talking about a bunch of different things. There may be some stuff that I'm a fan of, whether it's an artist that we're bringing in that we're interested in signing, or one of our artist songs where I'll be like, yo, this is hard. And maybe he'll have that in the back of his head. And so if he has a conversation, he'll echo what I say, maybe, or he'll go and listen and have his own opinion or whatever. But like, we're not always having those conversations. So just because I like something doesn't mean it's going to make its way to Todd. Similarly, I think you know this, like one of Rod's earliest champions in Alamo before I was even there was Sherry Bryant. She is the head of like the Rock Nation label.
Yeah. Shout
Now,
out to Sherry.
Yeah, OG. But that doesn't mean that Sherry and Hov are out here talking about Rod Wave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they got other shit to talk about.
Right.
So, you know, is it possible that she brought it up as he was really exploding, or Meek or somebody brought it up when it was exploding? Like maybe, and that's how Hov found out about it. But, you know, it's also possible that a bunch of other people were talking about it and he just paid attention and decided to press play and fucked with it. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
So the consensus is, y'all, that this is Obama's playlist.
I think
He's riding the Babyface Ray.
I think it is.
In the old school.
Feel me?
Secret Service on deck, jamming the Babyface Ray.
You know what
I
I'm
think
saying?
so.
Like, hey, these day playlists. That's we just gonna leave it at that.
I think so.
It was always interesting to me though.
Yeah, for sure.
How did the quarantine affect the game from your position?
It was a huge issue for a lot of acts that like right into 2020, a bunch of acts that kind of broke in all different genres, right? Because partially due to TikTok or whatever. And it's like the next step is like you hit the road. And Rod was one of them. Rod blew up end of 2019, Hard on Ice. And he announced he had his album out, Ghetto Gospel. And then he put the Ghetto Gospel tour out. And the tour started end of February, or like actually beginning of March, like first week of March. He's on tour. By the end of March, the tour is supposed to hit New York, LA, and hometown, and like the venue that he always wanted to go to as like a kid, Janice Live. And the week I remember the week of the pandemic, I went to DC to see Rod. Just get more information about the album that became Pray for Love. So I went down to DC, went to the show, kicked it with him. We started talking about Lil Baby getting on Rags to Riches at that point. Baby got on it later, obviously, as you know, but we were already talking about it at that point. And then the next day, I went to Philly, and that was the day before the pandemic. The next day after the Philly show, office was shut. Everything was shut. We were in the house, and that was the last stop of the tour. Philly was the last stop of the tour. I think he went to like DMV or like somewhere like that. Yeah.
DC, and we left from DC.
Yeah. And then basically, and Rod has talked about this a few times in interviews. Like it was like tour got canceled, and he was just like, "Oh fuck, what do I do now?" And
because you're a new artist.
Yeah.
You're like, I just gave y'all an album. I can't just give y'all another album right now. You know what I mean? Like I was supposed to tour and shoot videos and stuff like that, but we couldn't do none of it.
And it was like he didn't want to get off the road, and so he did a lot of like the reason why we were able to, I think, cut through during that time is that we just kept going. And I think he was one of the first people to perform in the pandemic world. Like he was performing by like the fall of 2020.
Yeah.
Like he did. I went to a show in Orlando that he did.
Yeah.
In the fairgrounds in I think September, October.
Yeah.
I think like end of September. And so he stayed super busy during the pandemic and was super active. And I think that made a huge difference. And it's, same with Dirk to an extent. I mean, Dirk I think waited to perform. I don't remember him doing a bunch of shows until like 2021, but he just stayed active. He put out a project. He did a bunch of big features, and a bunch of shit happened in his life, and that's kind of how we cut through. So the pandemic was a crazy time, man.
It was insane.
It was a crazy time.
What trips me out about the pandemic is how different it was for each person I talked to.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone has their own different experiences. You know what I mean? Like, I was in the house, I was depressed, I was stressed.
Right.
Some people like, man, I was in the house, I started a new business now.
You and I were not in the house.
People, we took a little while off.
A little bit.
The part that you had to.
Yeah.
Remember when it first closed down?
All the restrictions.
You were done. You couldn't move around. But then as soon as it started opening, we started grinding.
Yeah.
We got right back to it.
Yeah. You did a couple of those Cali runs with him?
Yep. Cali, Vegas, Rags to Riches video got shot during that time.
Yep. That was Atlanta.
Yeah, right after.
Yep.
So it was like, you know what I mean? We had to get right back to work.
Yeah.
That was
But
crazy.
you can't take your foot off the gas at a certain point as a new artist, though.
Yeah, I was home probably from end of March till like September. And then I remember the first time I left the house was to go to Orlando for the concert.
Got you.
That concert at the fairgrounds, remember?
Mm-hmm. I remember.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was crazy. I think he was doing something with YouTube at the time. We had to finish the thing we started with YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had gotten like this Artist on the Rise program or whatever.
Yep, I remember that.
And the Shooting Star video was shot there.
Yeah. All that went down.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes,
I
sir.
remember it like it was yesterday.
Crazy times. I mean, me and Travis have broad wave stories for days.
I was about to say, you guys.
Yeah, we've been in it for a few years now. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Is it?
Definitely.
It's something I tell people, and I don't know if this is true or not. So I'm gonna ask you: y'all record in a airport like terminal or like a gate?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We recorded in the terminal. We recorded on the bus, under blankets in hotels.
Yeah.
I knew about the buses and the hotels, but y'all recorded in the airport. So like y'all like explain the setup on recording in an airport.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's the same as the airport was quiet though. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like it was like the busy time
What
of
city was it
the
in?
airport. I don't remember.
At a terminal in the airport?
Yeah, we was
In
just
a
chilling.
public airport.
Yeah,
Like,
you know how like you're sitting waiting on your flight.
Yeah.
We was just, you know what I mean? Because Rod's the type that he wants to get it out. You know what I mean? He wants to get it out and listen back to it and see how it goes. So
And mind you, this is like ghetto gospel, right?
Yeah.
Or like before ghetto gospel's out.
yeah, and the one thing about me was coming from Red Zone, they were real big on catching the moments. You know what I mean? Like it used to be like the artists may say like, "Man, you made me miss I just had an idea, but you was out there eating your chicken." You know what I'm saying? And then they're gonna be like, "Nigga, why you eating your chicken? You should have been in there. He had that." Millions of dollars you just missed out on. So that had just been pounded in my head to like catch the idea, get it out.
Yeah.
To where when we were recording random spots, it would be the same setup: laptop, interface, mic. You know what I mean? A mic stand like this, or a regular mic stand like that. You know what I mean? And we just get it going. You know what I mean? But I've been recording in random environments since a kid. You know what I mean? So
that terminal.
you know what I mean? Even when I worked in a studio full time,
Yeah.
I would still go home and have my homies that's like, all right, we gotta do our stuff now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So getting sounds in like random environments, unless it's undoable, like it could just be certain. Like one time we were driving the tour bus, and Rod was like, "Can we set up on the bus?" And I was like, "Yeah, but they got to turn the bus off and they got to turn the generators off and all that stuff." And he was like, "Let's try it without it." And we tried it without it, and it was just too loud.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we still tried to record the song.
Yeah.
And you've been on the bus just be moving like
even
that.
with
you know
the
what I mean?
studio that they build on there, it's just
Oh man, did you ever get that bus?
Yes,
That
sir.
studio bus with the studio in the back?
Yeah.
Man, shouts out to my boy, man. But that was not, oh my God, I hate that bus. Because I'm just like, yo, this is, I don't know. It's like, it's like we might as
gonna
well
work,
just
bro. It wasn't gonna
wait
work.
to record.
Yeah.
Now, so
Unless you're stopped and parked, like you said.
But you have to turn everything off
Everything
and like,
off,
yeah.
so now the song in the airport. Do you remember what song it was?
No, I don't.
Damn.
To
it
be
made the
honest.
cut though.
Yeah, everything used to make the cut.
Crazy.
That was the thing. We only used to record like, so the thing about Rod was he didn't like to waste music, and he's not gonna just sit there. So he might sing a song for 3 days straight and want to wait to record it. On the third day, he might decide that I'm not gonna record that song. Instead of him just recording it and then saying, "Oh, we might see if we'll use it." So in the beginning, it would only be like 1 or 2 songs that we did that wouldn't make the album. It would be specifically, I'm recording this for the album. I'm recording this for the album, and they would make the album.
Was Sky Priority done? Is this Sky Priority?
No. Sky Priority was done in a house.
Okay, got it.
In a bed, in like a room, like a regular house room.
Yeah,
got it.
Early in the morning one day.
Yeah, that story it never really got fleshed out for me, but I heard about that and I had to ask because that's
crazy.
an insane.
Yeah,
it still blows
we
my mind.
recorded in pretty much anywhere that we could record. One time we recorded in this house that had like these bunk beds, and it was like we were under these bunk beds, so it was like all wood. It was just the craziest sound. It was like the craziest sound. I think the song that came out of that was Close Enough to Hurt Me, was it?
Oh wow.
I think we did that one. Yeah, I think it was that one.
damn.
Did anybody like stare at you guys at the airport? Like,
That's what I'm saying. How do you get that off at the terminal?
I don't remember,
like,
man. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. We used to just be locked in, and then we just used to kind of be just in our own bubble. Like it was like, now that's one thing. Rod always had people running up to him, and he always had fans like that. You know, what I mean? Like the diehard fans.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. The airport wasn't really like that back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. This is like before it all.
Yeah.
Got
the
crazy.
Was, yeah.
Yeah.
Cause
now.
Cause it blew quick. Oh,
Yeah.
You just try to do that now. I mean,
It's impossible now.
You step foot into the airport, it's over. So, I mean, it's gonna be up right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Both of you guys. I've seen yours famously on Instagram and socials, but you guys have both recorded on a PJ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recorded on the PJ?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, not really.
No, I haven't recorded. Yeah.
We've done playbacks and made it look. A
It
certain
looks
way.
like you guys have recorded in the
Yeah.
PJ.
Yeah, I didn't record.
It's too noisy.
Yeah, I didn't record on the
Anybody
PJ.
that you see that's trying to look like they're recording on the jet, like
Yeah,
jet's
because
probably off.
Because you
The
hear
jets on the
so
jets on the
fucking
jets on the
loud.
on the hangar basically.
Yeah, that shit is loud.
Got
because
it.
the mic's gonna pick up. So our sound level of us thinking
Yeah.
is it fluctuates. Like we could be on the plane and we'll just zone out
Yeah.
how loud that shit really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the mic's gonna have it at the right. It's gonna catch it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
nowhere around it.
Buzzing.
So I'm thinking about how.
Yeah, you can't even talk to each other barely in the air.
That
Like
part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's in
Yeah.
the background, so I don't know how you would get rid of that sound. They do have technology now where you can take out whole background noises and stuff.
Yeah.
But back then, nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nah.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I didn't know that. That's. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense that you
Yeah.
guys told me, but I didn't know that.
Yeah,
The remote recording game has gone far. You know what I mean?
man. I was
Yes.
remote.
You
Yeah,
recording on a cloud.
I was literally remote recording. We did sharing locations.
Yeah.
in 2 different cities. So I was recording him while I was in New York, and all the guys were in
Atlanta, yeah.
going like a cipher on the mic.
It was like
you know
in
what I
Meek's
mean?
house, right, or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and there's like a sound, like if you listen close, you'll hear like Dirk or somebody bump the mic stand. You know what I mean? Like little shit that you know what I'm saying? Like little cool shit like that. But yeah, you know you gotta adapt when this type of stuff happens, man. Like I couldn't. It was that time where like you just couldn't move. Like because shit had to get
Especially
done.
being in New York
Yeah,
or
it was
up
crazy.
here in New York.
Yeah, it was crazy
Yeah, it was
here.
the
with the
epicenter.
pandemic.
Jersey.
Yeah, it was bad.
Baltimore, all that stuff was like, nah.
It was bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, what? You outside?
yeah.
It's funny because
Like, y'all crazy down
yeah,
there.
right.
oh yeah, it was.
Oh, Florida
What,
was different.
hearing y'all.
Florida was good. Like, after DeSantis,
After the
what
first
his
month.
name was, he was
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's get back out here.
Yeah,
He's
y'all were
ready to go.
y'all were outside. Rod was outside. Atlanta was outside.
Atlanta
Like I
was
spent
Yeah,
outside.
Atlanta was outside for real.
I spent a bunch of time in Atlanta after I left the house. You know, in the fall, I was in Atlanta for a couple months. I was in Atlanta. We were in Atlanta at the same time. We didn't run into each other the night of the show.
Which show?
The show Rod did in Atlanta when it didn't go well.
Oh yeah.
That one. But yeah, no, I was in Atlanta at that time for like months. I spent like 2 months in Atlanta. But it was interesting. It was really cool. Because being from like the Northeast, it's just a different lifestyle. So I like spending the time in Atlanta made me understand who I'm working with. You know what I mean? And how it works down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And down in the South. And I thought that was really cool. That was a really cool experience for me.
Do you ever feel? Because of course you know what I mean, a minority as well.
Yeah.
So you definitely go through certain stuff here, but do you ever feel like the cultural differences get in the way, or you ever had issues where like, oh man, I have to wrap my head around how this game goes or what's going on. You know what I mean? Through the cultural differences.
No, I think that there's, because of my background, there's some things that make me very different, but then there's some things that make me very similar, right? And there's certain aspects, I think one of the things that I've always been able to connect with Rod and his crew with is family. The importance of family, the importance of that extended family. You know how big that is for him and his people, and that's really big for me and mine. And we've always have that conversation, like from the jump, and so there's certain experiences or certain things that come with that, with extended family and responsibility to family and all those things that I relate to. Like I've seen my parents go through, or I've gone through, or whatever, and so you just try to find the commonality, what makes us similar. And, you try to lean into that to have the conversation, but I never forget that I'm different, like and I'm a visitor or a tourist, if you will, to the culture and to the genre. Right. And I'm just a sponge soaking it all in. And, and at the end of the day, when you're working with artists and you're not the creative, that's the most important thing to remember. Yeah. Like, the artist, whether it's Rod, Dirk, whoever, is the star of the show. Like, I'm not the star of the show. Yeah. It's like, it's his vision, and I'm helping him bring it to life as best I can. And, I may have a suggestion here and there, but like, my job is to serve that vision and help them execute it as best as I can. Yeah. So, when you think about it from that standpoint, like, that's really all that matters. And so all the other, my identity doesn't need to be front and center in that, because ultimately I'm serving his identity.
Yeah, 100%.
That's how I look at it.
That's dope.
What do you think? Like, if you had to pick a time, like, what would you say is like your rock bottom moment when you were just like, damn, man, like everything's just going bad.
This game ain't easy.
It
no,
ain't
it's
easy.
not.
It's
not.
And how did you end up on the other side of that?
That's a good question. When I was starting doing the radio thing, when I was starting to write, I was doing radio. I was still in college. I hadn't figured out how I was going to make this a career. And when you have parents who are not from this country, particularly where my parents are from India, education is really important. Yeah. And translating that education into something meaningful is really important. And in the discovery of like this music thing, I wasn't taking school very seriously. And, I took time off. I needed to take a year off to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And that was very difficult for them. And also it meant that I was staying at their place for a little bit. And I think that was kind of the rock bottom point, if you will, and sort of getting a lot of questions of what does this mean? Like, what is writing, for a magazine and making a couple, $100 a month gonna mean in the long run? How are you gonna make this into something that you can pay your bills with or whatever? And, I didn't have the answers because I was still figuring it out. I was still, I was 21 years old, didn't know what my end goal was. Right. And also too, the other thing, and you guys remember this, there was a time period where record labels weren't hot. They hadn't figured it out. Apple Music changed the landscape in rap music forever, but Apple Music's launch is 2015. Yeah. August of 2015, and it took a couple years to get to a place. That's why at the beginning of this, I said like by 2018, labels were like all in on rap, and they were starting to hire people who understood it, and I was one of those people. But in 2013, like it wasn't shit. People were putting out free mixtapes to like get a buzz. Yeah. So labels weren't hiring. You could go, and I had a few friends who, they interned for 3 semesters, 4 semesters, and they still couldn't get a job from the label that they interned at. And so at that time, the idea of working at a label felt like it would never happen. Right. It wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind. Yeah. And so in a business that way, like that's built that way, what do you tell your parents that you're going to do and how you're going to, make money? And so, I spent a bunch of time just kind of crashing on friends' couches, trying to figure out the writing thing, continuing to do the radio thing, and just studying the game as I was doing it. And I remember I went to like a writer's birthday party, like this big writer at the time, journalist at the time, and all the writers were there. And I sort of had a moment. I took a step back at this party, and I was kind of like, the ceiling on this is too low. And, you know, I'm per article or whatever. There was a certain person who was there, or a certain conversation I was having, and like per article, I'm making the same amount as like this person who's been doing it for like 20 years. Like obviously they're doing more stuff and they're making more money that way. But like that's it was a grind that didn't make sense in my head in that moment. And then also like the type of writing I was doing, I wasn't fulfilling what I wanted to do. I was like, you know, writing a little bit more about gossip stuff or things that I needed to. I hadn't figured out how to like do what I wanted to do in terms of the storytelling that I wanted to do within that space.
Right.
And so that started the whole path for me of pivoting out of it. And, you know, I went back to school. I took out loans myself to finish it and paid my way through I had some scholarship money, obviously, but I took out loans to cover the rest of it, put myself 6 figures in debt. And, you know, just kind of like spent that remaining time in school, just kind of like starting to have conversations with different people within the business to try to figure out what the next path was. And that eventually led to being a publicist as opposed to being a journalist.
Yeah.
How did Apple Music change the landscape? Because you said you like changed it forever or something. So
it changed. It changed how rap was consumed. Like, you know, basically, you know, killed all the mixtape sites. Like people started to consume rap music on Apple.
Because before that, it was you remember my mixtapes?
Yeah, of course.
My mixtapes was like where the streets rappers they could get popping. Yeah. And then before that, it was live mixtapes. But then my mixtapes took over.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you're right. After that, it was a weird moment going on where it was SoundCloud, my mixtapes, and Apple Music was emerging because my memories just coming back to me about it now. Because White Iverson was a SoundCloud hit. I remember that one popped off SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And then it went over. You're right. So
but yeah, I mean, like Rod is one of Apple's biggest artists. You know, if you look at Rod, if you look at Rod on Spotify, somebody told me the number. It's less than 10 million monthly listeners. But Rod streams more than artists who have 25 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And that's because he's huge on Apple. When his pre-order will go up, it's, you know, off 2 songs or 3 songs, it'll be in the top 10 on Apple Music. And that's just how big he I think at one point when we did a pre-order for an album, it was like it set the record for the most pre-ads on Apple Music. And so, I mean, you know, rappers are massive on Apple Music, and like, you know, country is starting to catch on, and some of the other genres are starting to like infiltrate the space. But rap was a huge player on Apple.
Wow.
I mean, a sign of a successful rapper at some point was, you know, 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 Apple to Spotify ratio. So, you know,
makes sense though, because everybody has an iPhone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's
pretty simple math, right?
Exactly.
Built in.
Exactly.
If I got an iPhone.
And that's the other thing too. Like, iPhones aren't that big in the rest of the world, so Apple Music isn't actually that big in the rest of the world. Like, Spotify is a more global platform than Apple is. You know.
Listen, man, we could go on for
days,
man.
Chatting.
This is big.
You know what they say up here? Chatting. You just chatting. You know what they be saying?
Just gotta say though, we got an album coming out.
Oh yeah,
listen.
definitely.
Nostalgia.
Congratulations, guys.
It's funny because I kind of
work going into it.
I kind of hinted at it at the beginning of this. Like, we're sitting here, Rod announced the album title and date right before we started filming this.
Oh yeah.
And Cruz is like, you guys can't get off your phones.
Yeah,
We were just looking at the comments and the reactions and everything.
Nah,
Ready to drop,
I
man.
know
We
that
ready to
feeling.
drop, man.
I know that feeling.
Been working on it for a little while.
Right.
Ready to drop.
Man.
How long has it been? A year?
Yeah, it's been more than a year.
Yeah.
Beautiful Mind.
Album.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been over a year.
Over a year. August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be September. It seems like it gets a month or so back each time if I'm keeping track just off of.
I think
I don't know.
You'd know better than me, but it feels like as he's telling his story that, you know, it used to be early on, it was like 2 mixtapes a year, and then eventually it became, you know, he had to live his life for a little bit longer to like tell the story of what comes next.
That's because he writes off of real life though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he can't, like, I remember, was it last album? They were like, you guys need a club record. And he was like, I don't go to the club.
Wait, who said he needs? Who told him he needed a club record?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, yo, because they was so hyped up off Rags to Riches. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just like, we need another one of those. We got the love stuff. We got this. Where's the club record?
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't go to the club. So how you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he did it in his own way.
He's experimenting on this album though. Like what do you feel like brought that out of him?
I think he's growing up. I think he's just growing through life. So as you're as successful as he is, as young as he is, you're gonna go to the club.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to some kind of party environment. You're gonna go to, you know what I mean? You're gonna you're gonna change. Like even the content of these records. You know what I mean? Like, he went from back in the day being I Die in My Cuban Links to, you know what I mean? We're coming with stuff on this one. It's like Better Days and, you know what I mean? Get out your feelings and get you a bag. You know what I mean? And he's the feelings rapper. You know what I'm saying? So it's like just the evolution of growing up. And that, you know what I mean? It's like Jay-Z, man. Like Jay, every album he grew and then he rapped about where he was growing to.
Yeah.
Versus some artists come out and they continue to give, like, okay, I'm gonna give y'all what y'all expecting from me. I'm gonna give y'all what y'all want from me. And they try to stay tapped in there. Some it works for some it don't. A lot more it doesn't. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think his evolution has always been so fascinating to me. And there's certain songs or albums that I gravitate to more than others in his catalog, but his evolution is just so fascinating. Because it's so real, because he's really telling his life. So you've watched this journey of growth over 5+ years. And I think that's amazing. But B, he's somehow able to make that relatable to a large audience of people. And I think that's the hardest thing when you're talking about your life and your life is evolving and you're changing tax brackets and you're changing lifestyles. To make that still so relatable, I think is a testament to how incredible of a songwriter he is. Really, like he's not a rapper. He's telling stories. He's songwriting like beyond anything.
He's solidified, man. He ain't going nowhere.
Yeah,
we're at the section of the show where we get the lawyer on the phone. We got the legend Jason Berger in the building.
Turn me up, Cruz.
You already know. Today we've been talking to Dharmic Jain from Alamo. Shout out to Dharmic. But I kind of wanted to touch on this news just broke a couple days ago officially. We all kind of heard whispers. This BMI thing with them, you know,
man,
the purchase of BMI. Like, what does that mean?
A lot to talk
writers
about.
And like, what does that mean? I mean, you know,
so
how does that affect their business model?
Let's talk generally, and then we can dig into the minutia and give some tips for people that are there that may be approaching their opt-out, maybe talking to them about advances, because I'm dealing with all of it in some capacity presently. Ultimately, the first move and what I think caused people to come some concern is they've historically been a non-for-profit company, right? Just like ASCAP. And ultimately, that makes songwriters and creatives who are royalty participants feel good because they generate the income, they have a specific nut of their overhead, and the balance gets paid, you know, proportionately to their members.
Right.
In a for-profit scenario, that at least has the potential to change to where they're going to be building in bigger profit margins to satisfy their investors. And I think it's going to be a lot like you saw what happened with the major label system, as some of those bigger holding companies went public and ultimately shifted their priorities. I think some were good, some weren't so good. But ultimately, as you saw, once that happened, the profit margins for those companies significantly increased. In that instance, it wasn't to the detriment of their, whoever it may be, right? Artists, songwriters, producers, what have you. In this instance, that's really only the only deduction you can take if the profits that the company is going to maintain are going to be larger than what they were in a non-for-profit scenario, straight up, you know? And I think to add icing on the concern on that cake is that the buyer that we've now, in the last couple of days, have understood is going to be buying the company for, you know, a little over $1.5 billion is a fund. So what those funds, their goal, right, is specifically their ROI to their investors, right? So I think it's troubling, you know, it's like twofold. One is the shift from nonprofit to for-profit, and that necessarily means if the overhead changes, that's going to be to the detriment of the songwriters, because there's only a few pots, you know, that they work with. And then I think secondarily, the company that's coming in to purchase BMI is, you know, a fund-backed company, and they're going to want to increase those profit margins any way possible. And I think the only thing to think about is, or to take away, is more profits for ownership and management is less profits for the participants, the songwriters.
Right.
And for us being on the creative side, you know, that's raised a big concern really throughout the industry, especially in the publishing world.
I mean, so, I mean, and we're kind of assuming some of this, right? But like, what are some examples you feel of like how this could affect how you currently get paid out? Like, do you think it's
very simple. I think the concern is, and all this is yet to be determined, right? We're speculating, but the concern is under the prior structure and the prior regime, I got $15,000 a quarter. If things play out the way that we presume under the new structure and the new regime, I may get $12,500 a quarter. That's a problem when you did the same work, generated the same amount of streams. Song was publicly performed, more importantly, same amount of time on radio, same amount of time, you know, licensing and third-party direct licenses. So I think just generally, that's what the assumption is. And I think that the industry is waiting with bated breath for some information to make them feel more secure from this new group.
Yeah.
You know, and if that doesn't, I imagine there'll be a pretty significant uproar. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you may be able to get out of your agreement before its normal expiration date? Perhaps, right? So that brings us kind of to at least one portion of the minutia of this discussion, where what if you're one of those writers that's primed to get a writer's advance? But, you know, you're hearing all this in the news. You don't know what it means for your contract. And let's say you're nearing your opt-out period. You understand? I'm being told from some pretty smart people that they would rather hold out for a month or so, see if there's an ability to go across the street, meaning terminate your agreement early because of what's going on, and ultimately get an advance over there and be back in the non-for-profit realm.
Right.
Versus even taking some money that I could probably cash out next Friday.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, a tough conversation with a younger writer in particular.
Yeah.
Those advances sometimes keep those kids afloat for a year or two, you know? So to say, hey, don't take that because there's this move that may be better in the long run, but doesn't necessarily come with guaranteed money, that's a tough sell. So I've had some tough conversations in the last couple of weeks as the news has developed and the issues continue to ripen.
Yeah.
And I think time will tell what is the best decision. Now, again, please heed what I'm saying is I'm not saying that as a result of this, people are going to be able to walk from those agreements. I just don't know yet, but it's a possibility. And the one thing that I can assure you is if that possibility is something that's offered in light of the dissatisfaction with the new structure and perhaps the new ownership, if you're unrecouped, meaning you took a writer's advance and that's not been paid back yet, I would guarantee that's going to restrict your ability to move prematurely.
Right.
And that's why a lot of the guys now who have advances that have been proposed or they're looking to get that kind of money from BMI, that's why there's some pause and there's some concern of maybe let's wait for a couple weeks and see how this plays out on an industry-wide perspective before we take this money. Because if you're in the hole, even if there's an ability to walk, I don't think you'll have that ability if you're unrecouped.
Right. Well, let's see what happens, man. I mean, really interesting story. I didn't expect that. I mean, you know, I was seeing kind of some of the speculations and the talk, and then they officially announced it. I was shocked. I'm not gonna lie.
And time will tell. I know a lot of people who are big in publishing are concerned about it. And, you know, I think that there's, I'm sure, a slew of lawyers thinking about, depending on how it plays out, how they can tee it up to the advantage of them and their clients. But I think it'll come into focus in the next 30 days.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens, man. Appreciate your take on it. And thanks for taking the time as always, man.
Of course. In the instance of 9 out of 10 writers, though, probably listening to this, business as usual. Register your records or you're not getting paid on time. Make sure your address is up to date. Make sure your direct deposit info is up to date. All the normal course why people most likely don't get paid. Keep all that in motion until if and when, you know, they either come out with something or somebody who you trust advises you that there's a move to be made.
There it is. There it is. Thank you, brother.
Of course.
All right, catch you on the next one.
Thank you, guys.
Man, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me.
Appreciate you coming through, man.
Of course, nice to meet you.
This is a great convo, and it's gonna be very, very important.
Tips that you would give, like marketing tips that you would give to young rappers coming up?
To young rappers?
Like just in general, they ain't got it. Just real quick. Just a little something.
I mean,
if you're trying to get in the game, good starting point.
I think you just have to know what your strengths are and lean into those. You know what I mean? Like I think people always say, like, you know, you got to be better at this, you got to be better at that. And I think all of that's true, but lean into what your strengths are and really focus on those. If you flood the market with what your strength is and what you're really good at, people will, you'll catch people's radar.
Yeah. There it is, man.
It is.
We're going to leave you with
Marketing man
Marketing
himself, man.
101.
Appreciate y'all, guys.
Thank you, Dharmic, man.
Thank you for having me.
Time.
We appreciate you coming through, bro.
All right.
Yes, sir. This Hidden Hands signing off. Peace.